My name is Jake Turner. If you saw me today suited up, running my own business, maybe catching me smiling behind the wheel of a decent car UD. Never in a million years guess where I was just 10 years ago. It wasn't in a corner office or a comfortable home. It was under a bridge in Dallas, Texas, with nothing but a thin blanket between me and the cold concrete. Back then, life had stripped me down to my bare bones. I was 26 years old, broke, and lost in a cycle of bad decisions. Everything I owned fit into a single, worn-out backpack. My story wasn't complicated, just tragic. My mom, my rock, passed away when I was 17. My father had walked out on us long before that. Suddenly, I was an island. The world kept spinning, but I was stuck, watching everyone else move on without me. I had no one left. Every morning, my alarm clock was the rumble of traffic overhead. I'd make my way to the nearest gas station, a place most people don't even notice. For me, it was my bathroom. I'd wash my face in a grimy sink, splashing cold water on my tired skin, and I'd look up into a cracked mirror. The man staring back wasn't me. His eyes were hollow, his skin was sunburned and weathered, and his heart felt heavy with a regret so deep it physically hurt. I didn't recognize him, and I hated him for what he'd become. It's funny, I used to have big dreams. I wanted to be an engineer. I was fascinated by machines, how all the intricate parts worked together in perfect harmony. I loved understanding how just one broken piece, one small gear out of place, could bring the entire system to a grinding halt. Looking back, it was a perfect metaphor for my own life. But after high school, dreams took a backseat to reality. I couldn't afford college. I jumped from one small job to the next, never able to hold one down for long. The bills started piling up, creating a mountain I couldn't climb. One eviction notice led to another, and then another, until finally, there were no more doors to be kicked out of. There was nowhere left to go but the street. One night, the Texas sky just opened up. The rain came down harder than I'd ever seen, a relentless, unforgiving downpour. I was soaked to the bone, chilled and starving. The hunger was a gnawing pain in my stomach that had become my constant companion. In the distance, I saw the warm glow of an old diner, a beacon in the storm. It was open 24 hours. I hesitated, knowing I couldn't afford anything, but the need to get out of the cold was overwhelming. I walked in, dripping water all over the floor, just trying to be invisible. But the waitress saw me. She looked at me, and I braced myself for the usual look of pity or disgust. Instead, her eyes were filled with kindness. She walked over, a fresh pot of coffee in her hand, and poured me a cup. She slid it across the counter and said, "You look like you need this more than I do." That small gesture, that simple cup of coffee, it felt like a lifeline. Her name was Lydia. She didn't know it then, and I didn't either. But that single act of compassion was the spark that would change the entire course of my life. I started going back to that diner every night. At first, it was just to be in a warm, safe place. After a while, I started helping out, cleaning up after closing time, anything just to earn my keep and stay a little longer. Lydia became a friend. She'd talk to me, not like I was a charity case, but like I was a person. She told me about a local shelter that offered hot meals and a real bed. I was reluctant. I'd heard stories, and my pride was still fighting a losing battle. But I was tired of the cold, tired of being alone. So I went. That shelter became my first real step toward rebuilding my life. It was more than just a roof over my head. It was a community. They had a job training program, teaching basic computer skills. I signed up, not really knowing what to expect. Honestly, I was terrible at first. My fingers felt clumsy on the keyboard, and my brain felt foggy. But for the first time in a long time, I had a routine, a purpose. So I kept showing up, day after day. After a few months, a volunteer named Mark pulled me aside. He'd noticed my progress, how quickly I was starting to pick things up. He told me about an internship opportunity at a small machine repair shop. It only paid minimum wage, but to me, it felt like a winning lottery ticket. It was gold. I poured everything I had into that job. I showed up an hour early, every single day. I swept floors. I cleaned machines. I organized tools. I asked a million questions and listened to every answer, soaking up knowledge like a sponge. For the first time in years, you felt Useful. I felt a flicker of that old dream, the boy who'd loved to see how things worked. I saved every single dollar I earned. I'd skip meals sometimes, telling myself the hunger was temporary, just to keep a little more money in my pocket. The goal was a roof. My own roof. After 6 long months of relentless work and saving, I had enough. I rented a tiny room, the smallest one I could find. I'll never forget that first night, lying on a cheap mattress on the floor, staring up at a clean, solid ceiling. There were no cars rumbling overhead, no cold wind biting at my skin. It was quiet. It was safe, and I just lay there for hours, whispering 2 words over and over again into the darkness. Thank you. The years that followed were a blur of hard work and learning. I never stopped. I took online courses at the public library, studying late into the night. I earned my certification as a mechanical technician. That certification opened a door to a job at a big manufacturing company. The pay was good, the work was steady, and my life began to look normal. But I never forgot. I never forgot the cold, the hunger, or the despair. And more importantly, I never forgot the people who reached out a hand when I had nothing. Lydia at the diner, Mark at the shelter, my first boss at the repair shop. Every face that saw a human being instead of a problem. Their kindness was branded on my soul. At 35, I decided to take the biggest leap of my life. I cashed out my meager savings and opened my own repair business, specializing in the industrial equipment I had come to know so well. It was terrifying. There were months when I barely made payroll, when I thought I was going to lose everything all over again and end up right back where I started. The fear was real. But every single time I felt like quitting, I would close my eyes and transport myself back to that bridge. I'd feel the cold seep into my bones, and I'd remember how far I'd come. That memory became my fuel. Today, my business employs 22 people. We make it a point to seek out and train young men and women who come from tough backgrounds. Kids who have that same lost look in their eyes that I once had. I see myself in them. And every Friday, without fail, we sponsor the evening meal at the very same shelter that once gave me a bed. It's my way of paying it forward, of keeping that circle of kindness going. Sometimes, people ask me for my secret. Jake, how did you do it? How did you make it? And I always tell them the same thing. It wasn't some magic formula or a stroke of luck. It was persistence. It was showing up when I didn't want to. It was the kindness of strangers who became my lifeline. And most of all, it was the stubborn belief that even when life has beaten you down into the dirt, you can still rise. You just have to find the strength to take one small step forward. Then another, and another. I'm not a millionaire. I don't have a mansion or a fancy sports car. That was never the goal. For me, success is much simpler. It's the feeling of waking up in a warm bed. It's the pride of doing work that I love. And it has the profound privilege of being able to give hope to others who are still lost in the dark, just like I once was. My story isn't special because it's unique. It's special because it proves that if a man with nothing can find his way back, then truly, anyone can. Thank you for listening. If my story resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more. You never know whose life you might change.